that's something that I will never get used to as someone who was born and raised in the UK. Very, very difficult for me to wrap my head around. Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well and that you've had a great week. As you can see, I'm in the car today, but nonetheless, all of my house guests, you're very welcome, so make yourselves comfortable. If you're visiting my channel for the first time and you'd like to become a house guest, don't forget to hit subscribe and activate all of your notifications. I'm Chez, this is Chez M0i, welcome to my place. House rules. Please do not watch this video if you have absolutely no interest in the subject matter, as indicated by the thumbnail. You struggle to simply accept other people's opinions when they don't necessarily align with yours. You're a professional point misser. You are not able to engage respectfully. Remember that there are countless other channels that cater specifically to your needs and preferences. Therefore, please feel free to exit this video and engage with their content instead. 26 years after her death, Princess Diana is still more popular today than her ex-husband, the current king, will ever be. And I sometimes think that Harry to Charles is a prevailing and uncomfortable reminder of the woman whose favourite flower was the forget-me-not, ironically. Charles and Diana's second son was challenging the High Court in London earlier this week with regard to his security arrangements. This article is taken from bbc.co.uk and it was published yesterday, Thursday the 7th of December 2023. Prince Harry tells court he wants his children to feel at home in UK. Prince Harry wants his children to feel at home in the UK, but they cannot if it's not possible to keep them safe, the High Court has heard. Calling the UK his home, the Duke of Sussex said it was with great sadness that he and his wife Meghan felt forced to leave the country in 2020. He is challenging the Home Office over a decision to downgrade his security protection when visiting. The government says his claim should be dismissed. Wow. The court is considering the changes to publicly funded protection when Prince Harry stopped being a working royal in early 2020. After stepping back, he moved to the US where he lives with his wife and their two children, Archie and Lilibet. The committee that arranges security for members of the royal family and other VIPs, known as RAVEC, decided in 2020 that Prince Harry would no longer have the automatic level of security for senior royals. Instead, the level of security would be arranged depending on the perceived risk, as is the case with other high-profile visiting dignitaries. So he's been reduced to a visiting dignitary now. Okay. Prince Harry's lawyers say the decision was unlawful and unfair. At a hearing on Thursday, his barrister, Shahid Fatima, KC, said references by the Home Office's lawyers to the Prince no longer being a full-time working royal were often said in a way that emphasised choice. But she said he did not accept this. She read out an excerpt of a statement written by Harry as part of his case, in which he said, "It was with great sadness for both of us that my wife and I felt forced to step back from this role and leave the country in 2020. The UK is my home. The UK is central to the heritage of my children and a place I want them to feel at home as much as where they live at the moment in the US. That cannot happen if it's not possible to keep them safe when they are on UK soil. I cannot put my wife in danger like that and, given my experiences in life, I am reluctant to unnecessarily put myself in harm's way too. Thursday marks the end of the 2.5-day hearing, much of which concerned security arrangements for senior figures and took place in private. Prince Harry, who did not attend in person, now waits for a ruling from Mr. Justice Lane at a later date. Earlier this week, Prince Harry's lawyers argued that there had been a lack of transparency about the decision and the prince had not been treated the same way as others. There was no good reason for singling out the claimant, Prince Harry, this way, said his legal team. Ms. Fatima Casey told the court Ravek should have considered the impact a successful attack on the claimant would have, bearing in mind his status, background and profile within the family, which he was born into and which he will have for the rest of his life, and his ongoing charity work and service to the public. But the Home Office's case argued that, as the prince was no longer a working royal and lived overseas, his position has materially changed. In those circumstances, protective security would not be provided on the same basis as before, said its lawyers. There will still be publicly funded police security for Prince Harry, the lawyers said, but these will be bespoke arrangements, specifically tailored to him, rather than the automatic security provided for full-time working royals. Sir James Eadie, KC for the Home Office, said in written arguments it was simply incorrect to suggest that there was no evidence that the issue of impact was considered, adding that the death of Diana, Princess of Wales, Harry's mother, was raised as part of the decision.
Hey, question for you.
Why is it deemed unreasonable for Harry to expect protection for him and his family while they're in the UK? Harry's geographical location wasn't a barrier to him receiving protection 11 years ago, was it? As you can see, the BBC reported on the 18th of September 2012 that Harry was moved to a secure location during a Taliban attack on Camp Bastion in Afghanistan. Listen to what this Defence Secretary at the time, Philip Hammond, said. Additional security arrangements recognise that the prince could be a target specifically as a result of who he is. The difference between Prince Harry in 2012 and Prince Harry in 2023 is that he now has a wife and children. The fact that Harry could be a target specifically as a result of who he is hasn't changed, and I would submit that because he has a family of his own now, the threat level is even greater. So, out of curiosity, I decided to peruse the royal.uk website. So there you have the King, the Queen, the Prince of Wales, the Princess of Wales, the Duke of Edinburgh, the Duchess of Edinburgh, the Princess Royal, the Duke of Gloucester, the Duchess of Gloucester, the Duke of Kent, Princess Alexandra, the Duke of Sussex, the Duchess of Sussex, and finally the Duke of York. And the order of these images and the biographies is very telling to me. Is giving, tell me I'm no longer part of the family without telling me I'm no longer part of the family. Just a bit of background for you if you're not from the UK. So in August this year, Priti Patel was the Home Secretary. She was replaced by Suella Braverman, who was fired last month, and now James Cleverly holds that position. So in 4 months, the UK has had 3 Home Secretaries, and I tell you that to demonstrate that the current UK government, which has been the Conservative government for the last 13 years, has absolutely no idea how to run a bath, let alone how to run a country. And with that being said, I find this a bit confusing. This article is from The Guardian on the 24th of August 2023. Priti Patel apologises to King after email about Andrew's security leaked. Leaked email from Home Secretary understood to back return of Prince's £3 million a year police protection. Priti Patel has apologised to King Charles for causing embarrassment and difficulties after reportedly suggesting a review of Prince Andrew's security should be launched. Andrew no longer has taxpayer-funded police protection, according to reports, after giving up his HRH title after his association with child offender Jeffrey Epstein and an out-of-court settlement in a US civil case dominated headlines. A leaked email from the former Home Secretary to the King's principal private secretary, Sir Clive Alderton, reportedly backs Andrew's efforts to get his £3 million a year security back, but Alderton is powerless to make any changes to royal protection. After Patel's email to Alderton was leaked, she told The Sun, "It is disappointing that this correspondence has been leaked into the public domain, and I apologise to His Majesty for the embarrassment and difficulties the publishing of this correspondence has caused." Andrew stepped away from public life after his disastrous Newsnight interview in November 2019 and the furore over his friendship with the financier Epstein. Virginia Giuffre also sued him for allegedly assaulting her when she was 17 after she was trafficked by Epstein. Andrew has always denied the claims, but an undisclosed sum thought to have been worth millions of pounds in an out-of-court settlement in the US civil case. In January 2022, before his legal settlement, his mother, the Queen, stripped Andrew of all his honorary military roles, including Colonel of the Grenadier Guards, and he gave up his HRH style. Ghislaine Maxwell, who was pictured in the background of a photo with Andrew and a 17-year-old Giuffre, last year said she felt so bad for her dear friend Prince Andrew. In her first lengthy interview since her conviction on trafficking charges last year, Maxwell said she still cared about the Duke of York. Speaking to the Israeli-American documentary filmmaker Daphne Barak, Maxwell said, "I feel so bad for him. I follow what is happening to him." Now, if the government, i.e. Priti Patel, Home Secretary back in August, was supportive of Andrew trying to reclaim his taxpayer-funded security, remember that he never offered to pay in his life. Why is that same government unwilling to even allow Harry, as the King's son, to pay for police security out of his own pocket? The Metropolitan Police has been on a recruitment drive for a number of years. Are you seriously telling me that they can't spare a relatively small number of specially trained officers to protect a young family of 4, not funded by the British taxpayer? These social media posts may shed some light as to why Harry is unlikely to get what he wants for him and his family. Now, I wanted to go back a couple of weeks to the release of Omid Scobie's book Endgame. And if you recall, in my last video, I played you the clip of Morgan stating the names of those purported to have raised concerns about Archie's skin colour.
Well, I'm going to cut through all this crap. I'm going to tell you the names of the 2 senior royals who are named in that Dutch version of the book. Because frankly, if Dutch people wandering into a bookshop can pick it up and see these names, then you, British people here, who actually pay for the British royal family, you're entitled to know too. And then we can have a more open debate about this whole farrago, because I don't believe any racist comments were ever made by any of the royal family, and until there is actual evidence of those comments being made, I will never believe it.
He wasn't saying that a number of years ago.
This woman existed. All the alarm bells rang at Buckingham Palace, and I could almost hear them saying, "Pull the shutters down. It's an invasion."
She's mixed race, she's American, she's a divorcee, actress. Those are 4 ticks. No member of the royal family, the senior members, ever thought they would see having to be ticked when it came to Harry's bride.
All the things that frightened the royal family have suddenly arrived on their doorstep. I can hear Diana laughing now.
Meghan's marrying into a family which has, to put it mildly, a dodgy track record on race. It's not Meghan Markle's problem, it's their problem. Meghan's marrying into a family which has, to put it mildly, a dodgy track record on race. It's not Meghan Markle's problem, it's their problem.
Did you notice who else was in that clip? Yep. Good old trustworthy Paul Burrell. Apart from the obvious, let's see what else these two have in common, shall we? Neither of them had received an invitation to William and Kate's wedding back in 2011. Meghan apparently was working for CNN at the time and was a correspondent for that event. And when it comes to Burrell, so why would he be invited to William and Kate's wedding? It wouldn't surprise me at all if he pushed himself to act as a royal correspondent for that event. So we now fast forward to 2018, just before Harry and Meghan's wedding in May. Listen to what Meghan said.
I thought very smart, very charming, very warm, very direct with eye contact. She was a really nice person. And she seemed to me to have a sense about her of being concerned about issues, concerned about the planet, the environment, women's rights. She's got that campaigning streak too. But I really liked her. I'm just sad I lost her as a friend. It's like, Harry, you could have thought of me here, buddy.
You're quite bitter about this.
Well, I'm not bitter, just sad.
Yes.
Mainly because I don't get the Suits episodes, and that really kills me. But also, I just thought we were friends, Meghan. What happened? But I get it, because Harry, the moment it became serious, there's no way Harry wants Meghan Markle anywhere near media people, just period. Doesn't mean I haven't ruled out that I might get an invite to the wedding.
So you haven't yet?
No, but I just think Meghan will be sitting there thinking, you know what, I owe that guy one. I really owe that guy.
What does she owe you?
She owes me an invitation to the wedding to make up for cutting me dead.
And here is what Burrell had assumed. I'll leave you to draw your own conclusions. However, I will say this. I honestly didn't realise that the non-receipt of a wedding invitation could make middle-aged men so bitter. But then again, it wasn't just any old wedding, was it? I can almost guarantee that if these two bitter bobbies had a prominent seat in St George's Chapel, Windsor, on Saturday the 19th of May 2018, you would not hear any of the absolute bile that they have been spewing from their mouths for the last 5.5 years. These two individuals feel that the best way to ingratiate themselves with and not be forgotten by the royal family is to relentlessly attack Harry and Meghan without even taking a breath. By the time Prince George is ready to get married, if these two guys are still around at the time, Meghan and Burrell will have absolutely no relevance to that generation. They will have been completely forgotten. But do you notice how these two hardly say anything about Prince Andrew? In case you needed reminding, any government files containing information about Prince Andrew will remain secret until 2065, long after his death. So it really speaks volumes about an establishment who is willing to protect in every single way A member of the royal family who is a self-entitled opportunist and an alleged abuser who really believes he's above the law, not just here in the UK, but also in the US. So I think it would be fair to say that if the royal family had ever had a moral compass to begin with, it's now well and truly broken. But there's a plot twist, guys, because it would appear that the late Queen Elizabeth had something completely different to say when it comes to Harry and Meghan's security.
Arrangement and the fact that he's taken the Home Office to court after they downgraded his security protection when he's in the UK. Today, though, another day, another moment where Prince Harry's at the High Court. Now, this was a case he is taking against the Mail on Sunday about a story, an article they wrote about his security arrangements. The judge has said that he thinks this can go to trial because he thinks the Mail on Sunday have a good enough defence to be put to trial. But there was a very interesting letter in the court documents which came from the private secretary of the late Queen Elizabeth. Now let me just read you a little bit of what he wrote to government, and we'll take you back to 2020. This is just after Prince Harry and his father, now the King and the late Queen, all had this big summit in Sandringham. And this is what the Queen's private secretary wrote. You will understand well that ensuring that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex remain safe is of paramount importance to Her Majesty and her family. And after talking about Harry's high profile and Meghan's high profile, he then goes on to write, the family is mindful of tragic incidents in the past, which, as you just noted, was a reference to the death of Princess Diana in 1997. Now look, as we say, lots of court cases, it gets rather complicated with Harry, but this was a very interesting twist tonight from the private secretary of the late Queen.
Chris, thank you very much.
Okay guys, so this latest development is very interesting. Am I hopeful that the Queen's instructions will be adhered to? No. And this is purely based on Charles's track record, because I've observed that since Queen Elizabeth passed, Charles has just become really defiant. I mean, as a man who's 75 now, he just celebrated his birthday, he's literally behaving like a petulant teenager because he's not getting his own way. It was very clear that Queen Elizabeth put certain things in place in the reasonable hope, in fact, high expectation that they'd be followed through. But, you know, two examples spring to mind with regard to Charles not following through. For instance, when the Queen had given instructions that after she had passed, that Charles, when he became king, Camilla should be known as Queen Consort. What did Charles go and do? What do you now know Camilla as? Queen Camilla. She's now the Queen. And that's still hard for me to wrap my head around, because all my life Queen Elizabeth has been on the throne. That's something that I will never get used to as someone who was born and raised in the UK. Very, very difficult for me to wrap my head around. The second example is Harry's financial abuse by Charles, quite frankly. I'm only going to read these two paragraphs from this article, which was first published in the November 2023 print edition of Byline Times. And it says, King Charles withdrew his £700,000 funding deal for son Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's transition to a life in Canada in retaliation for the naming of a top royal aide in legal papers alleging a cash for leaks arrangement with the journalist Dan Wootton, Byline Times can reveal. The financial sanction came after the Duke of Sussex defied the demands of the then Prince of Wales and Palace staff by declining to remove the name of former Kensington Palace Press Secretary Christian Jones from a letter before action to Wootton's former employer, The Sun, in May 2020. And this is why Harry said that he had been cut off financially by his father. This is the King of England, guys. Is this kingly behaviour? Is this behaviour becoming of a monarch, especially in the 21st century? And then they wonder why people question why there's a need for a royal family when they behave like this to their own. If King Charles can treat his own flesh and blood like this, with such contempt, do you really think that he thinks much of his subjects? I mean, the optics are not good. But this is the King of England, and we're supposed to not question anything. We're not supposed to question the behaviour of people who are set and revered at a higher standard, at a higher level. They're held to a higher standard. We're not supposed to question them because they are royalty. I question them every time. Every time they do nonsense, I question them. You guys know that. But anyway, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, whether the late Queen Elizabeth's instructions will be adhered to. Anyway, guys, as I wrap up this video, if your thoughts were provoked in any way, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't yet become a house guest, don't forget to hit subscribe and activate all of your notifications. In the meantime, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you guys so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, and you shall catch me in the next video.